The Western Front, somewhere in France, 1916. Rain hammers against waterlogged earth as you huddle in a trench barely wide enough for 2 men to pass. The air reeks of cordite, wet wool, and something worse you've learned not to name. In your frozen hands, you grip a tin of corned beef and a biscuit hard enough to crack teeth. This is dinner. This is survival. Welcome to the forgotten art of trench fieldcraft, where staying alive meant mastering the most primitive of skills under the most impossible conditions. Cooking in the trenches was not about comfort or taste. It was about transforming inedible provisions into fuel while enemy snipers waited for the telltale wisp of smoke from your fire. Field kitchens were positioned as far as a mile behind the lines, and by the time catering staff hauled soups and stews forward through winding communication trenches in dixies and jam jars, everything arrived stone cold. On quiet nights, soldiers might risk brewing tea on small solid-fuel stoves tucked deep in dugouts, but during active combat, hot meals became memories. Men ate cold bully beef straight from the tin and learned to make peace with hunger as constant as the rats. The British Army promised each soldier 3,500 calories daily, though battlefield reality mocked such precision. At the war's start, rations included 10 ounces of meat and 8 ounces of vegetables. By 1916, as the German blockade tightened, meat rations plummeted to 6 ounces, then disappeared entirely for weeks. This was the grim arithmetic of industrial warfare, millions of men requiring millions of meals, all transported through hell under enemy fire. Every soldier's diet came down to bully beef, hardtack biscuits, and, well, ingenuity. Bully beef, that canned corned beef, was tough, salty, and greasy, designed to last indefinitely. Most ate it cold, but when circumstances allowed, they created willy hash. They would dice whatever potatoes, onions, or turnips they could scrounge, add the bully beef with flour to thicken, and boil the mixture in whatever vessel they had, sometimes even in a sandbag suspended over a small fire. It was hardly appetizing, but it was hot, and in the frozen misery of winter that made it a feast. The hardtack biscuits were legendarily indestructible. Soldiers called them toothed dollars with bitter humour. The official solution was soaking them for days until they softened, but innovative men smashed them into powder using rocks, then mixed it with water to fry in bacon fat, or added it to bully beef stew. Some mixed the powder with condensed milk and heated it into something resembling porridge. These weren't recipes. They were survival techniques invented by men whose alternative was starvation. The soldiers of the Great War developed survival instincts that would serve any modern bushcrafter well. They learned that high ground offered perspective but exposed you to snipers. They understood that cold air sinks, so sleeping halfway up a hillside meant a warmer night than the frost-pooled valley floor. They positioned improvised shelters with an eye toward prevailing winds, using natural contours to shield cooking fires from observation. Food scarcity bred creativity. Behind the lines, soldiers planted vegetable gardens in any uncrated soil. They hunted and fished during lulls, supplementing rations with rabbits and birds. When supply lines were shelled, they bartered with French civilians, trading cigarettes for eggs and fresh bread. This was bushcraft stripped to brutal essentials, practiced not in peaceful forests, but in landscapes transformed into moonscapes of mud and death. To understand what those men endured, let's try to recreate their meal. Start with what they called willy hash. Take about 12 ounces of canned corned beef and dice up 2 potatoes, 1 onion, 2 carrots, and a turnip. Heat some lard in a pot, sauté the onion until it's soft, then add your vegetables and let them brown a bit. Sprinkle some flour over everything to make a roux, then gradually add water or stock. Break your corned beef into chunks, fold it in with a bay leaf, a bit of salt and pepper, then just let it simmer for about 30 minutes. Remember, this stew, often eaten cold straight from a tin, in a freezing trench with artillery screaming overhead, actually represented luxury to men who could go days without a hot meal. The hardtack, well, that requires some real dedication. Mix together 2 cups of whole wheat flour with a teaspoon of salt. Add water slowly until you get a stiff, almost unworkable dough. Roll it out to about ½ an inch thick, cut it into squares, poke holes with a fork, and bake at 375 degrees for 40 minutes until it's absolutely rock solid. Try eating one without soaking it first. Feel how it attacks your teeth. Understand why soldiers smashed them with rocks and soaked them for days. Finally, brew proper army tea, strong and sweetened generously because every calorie mattered. Serve your stew in a metal bowl. Place the hardtack on the side. Soak it briefly to make it edible. Eat with just a spoon. Taste the monotony. Imagine eating this exact meal for years until the sight of corned beef made you sick. That was survival. The Fieldcraft techniques born in those trenches echo through every modern survival manual. The emphasis on shelter, water, fire, and food, the understanding that adaptability trumps equipment, the knowledge that mental fortitude often matters more than physical comfort. Those soldiers didn't have modern gear or GPS. They had ingenuity, determination, and an ironclad will to see another dawn. They learned to read weather in the sky's color, navigate by stars when landmarks had been erased, and make fire from damp wood using techniques as old as humanity itself. Today's preparedness community can learn profound lessons from their experience, the importance of backup methods for every critical task, the value of physical fitness when survival depends on endurance, the necessity of mental resilience when circumstances become dire, and the power of small comforts, a hot cup of tea or dry socks, to maintain morale when everything else has gone to hell. As you finish that last sip of tea, remember you've experienced a tiny fragment of what they endured daily. You did it in comfort and safety. They couldn't walk away. They lived it month after month, sustained only by the skills they developed and the brothers beside them in the mud. Their story deserves remembering not just as history, but as a masterclass in human adaptability. The next time you practice bushcraft, think of them. Honor their memory by mastering the crafts they perfected under fire. If this journey into forgotten Fieldcraft resonated with you, subscribe to Fieldcraft Chronicles. Share this video with fellow history enthusiasts, survivalists, and anyone who values self-reliance and the lessons of the past. These stories and techniques are simply too important to lose. Until the next Chronicle, stay prepared, stay curious, and never stop learning from those who walked the hardest paths before us.